I remember the gravel crunching under my tires as the sun slipped behind the Kansas horizon, turning the sky into a bruised shade of orange and purple. The moment I opened the car door, the cold wind hit me with the kind of bite that didn't feel natural, like the air here didn't want me breathing it. I stepped out onto the dirt, looking up at the rusted sign that marked the entrance to Stull Cemetery, America's most evil graveyard, or at least that's what every urban legend claimed. But standing there, listening to the wind howl and distant thunder rumble through an otherwise empty landscape, I felt something I didn't expect. Heaviness, like the place was aware of me, like it was waiting. I introduced myself the way I always do, welcoming everyone back to the IMR Scary Tales. But even as I said the words, I could feel the weight of the cemetery pressing in. This town barely has 20 people living in it, but the graveyard's population is, well, impossible to count. So many graves here have been worn smooth by time, completely erased. The dead outnumber the living by thousands, maybe tens of thousands. And yet, that's not even close to the reason anyone comes to Stull. People call it the gateway to hell. They say the devil appears here twice a year, at the spring equinox and on Halloween night. Supposedly, decades ago, the Pope's plane refused to fly over this patch of land. Even seasoned paranormal investigators have left in the middle of the night, swearing they were being hunted. And the locals? They don't come here after dark. Ever. They wouldn't come with me tonight, even if I paid them. And still, I walked in. I told myself I wasn't scared, that I'd spent the night in plenty of haunted locations, that this would be no different. But the deeper I walked into the cemetery, the more I could feel something crawling across my skin. Anticipation, dread, curiosity, all mixed together. I looked at the ruined church in the distance, the one that supposedly burned down under mysterious circumstances. Even in daylight, that structure looks wrong, but under the fading sun, it was almost alive. Before setting up camp, I started talking through the history on camera, walking between gravestones so old that the names were nothing but soft indentations on cracked stone. The place was established in the 1850s, but the legends stretch back even further. Witches were said to gather here for rituals, real ones, sacrifices, summoning ceremonies, and the old church, it had its own horrors. I walked closer to the ruins, my flashlight cutting through the dimming light. Somewhere inside that building, over a century ago, a stable boy had supposedly hung himself from the rafters, but witnesses said he didn't look like someone who jumped. His body was covered in claw marks. His eyes were burned out. They ruled it suicide, but even standing outside the ruins now, I could imagine something waiting for him in the shadows. Something that didn't need rope to kill. The fire that destroyed the church didn't make sense either. When they found the child's body under the floor, decades old and perfectly preserved, the second they tried to move it, the corpse burst into flames violently enough to consume the entire building in minutes. Even telling the story out loud, I felt the hair on my arms rising. The child's body was never recovered. People say it's still here, under the rubble, untouched and waiting. But the legend that people fear the most sits in the middle of the cemetery, the Devil's Chair. I approached the gravestone slowly, the one shaped like a throne. Legend says if you sit in it at midnight, the devil will appear and grant one wish, at a cost. I ran my hand over its cold stone surface and kept talking, but my voice changed without me meaning to. Lower, tighter. The memory of the 1993 incident, Brandon Mills sitting in this same seat and dying 3 days later, was suddenly too vivid. His friends said he screamed about something entering him. Doctors found burns on his hands and feet, and his temperature was impossibly high. I kept telling the story, but my eyes stayed on that stone seat the entire time, like it was listening.
Knowing we'd eventually have to come back to it,
I finally walked away and headed toward the spot where I planned to set up base camp. The light was almost gone now. The air felt colder than it should. Even the ground seemed different under my boots, hollow somehow, shallow. By the time I set up the tent and placed the cameras around the cemetery, the ruins, the chair, the entrance, and my camp, the last sliver of daylight was gone. And when the sun disappeared, the entire graveyard felt like it exhaled. I sat down, checked the equipment, and that's when it happened. The EMF detector began to scream, a steady, violent spike from 0.2 to 7.5 in seconds. No wires, no power lines, no explainable source. My heart kicked hard in my chest as I stood up, holding the detector out in front of me. Everywhere I turned, the reading got stronger. I walked toward the ruins, and the number climbed higher and higher. By the time I reached the edge of the broken stone foundation, it was at 9.2 milligauss, far beyond anything natural. Then something slammed the ruins. A door, a giant piece of wood, something heavy enough to echo across the entire cemetery. Except the church has no door. My throat went dry instantly. I lifted the camera, my voice shaking as I called out into the darkness. I didn't expect anything to respond, but something did. A child's voice, far away at first, then closer. "Help me!" I swear the air froze. My breath caught in my chest. I tried to rationalize it. I really did. But when I heard it again, louder, surrounding me, echoing from different parts of the cemetery, "Help me!" I turned in a full circle with the flashlight, but there was no child. There shouldn't be any. Then the voices changed. 5, maybe 6 different voices. Men, women, children, all overlapping, all whispering the same thing. "Get out. Leave. You don't belong here." I could feel my heartbeat in my teeth. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a fallen gravestone as I turned and sprinted back to camp. When I rewound the audio to check the footage, the voices were clearer than I remembered. I sat there shaking, alone in the tent, listening to them over and over. It wasn't my imagination. It wasn't the wind. The voices were real. And they weren't warnings. They were threats. Even after I convinced myself to keep going, the graveyard didn't quiet down. If anything, it felt like everything out there was leaning closer, like the entire cemetery wanted to hear what my next move would be. I tried to steady my breathing and check the equipment again, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. The voices had been real. I'd heard them with my ears, not just through the recorder. And that's what scared me the most. They wanted me to know they were here. By 9:47 p.m., I forced myself to focus. Cameras were placed exactly where they needed to be. I had one at the ruins, one pointed at the devil's chair, one watching the entrance, and one at base camp. The audio recorders were already picking up subtle whispering I prayed was wind, even though I knew this place didn't need wind to whisper. I sat in the tent and tried to speak normally for the camera. I wanted to sound like I was in control. Watching the footage now, I can see I wasn't. When the EMF detector spiked again, sharper, louder, almost angry, I felt the bottom of my stomach drop. It jumped from a normal reading straight to 7.5, then to 9.0 again. My first instinct was to walk toward the ruins. My second instinct was to run in the opposite direction. Curiosity won. The moment I stepped out, I felt like I'd crossed into someone's living room without knocking. The air was heavy, thick, dense enough that I could almost feel it pressing against my skin. The noise, the static, the invisible pressure, it all increased the closer I got to the burnt skeleton of the church. And I swear, with every step, the temperature dropped another degree. The bang, God, that bang, slammed through the ruins like something massive had crashed a door into its frame. But there was no door, only broken walls, blackened stone, and empty space. The sound shouldn't have existed. And yet, it echoed like the ground itself had been hit. I remember whispering into the recorder, asking whatever was there to make itself known, but I didn't need to ask twice. Help me. A child, a single voice, close. Then the others followed. Adults, children, all layered over each other, begging, warning, commanding. My skin crawled so violently it hurt. I couldn't stay there. I ran, practically stumbling back to base camp. I didn't want to hear the recording again, but I needed proof I wasn't losing my mind. The playback was worse than hearing it in real time. I could distinguish at least 5 different voices, each one clearer than the last, overlapping in a way that didn't sound human. No one can speak like that. 5 voices intertwined in the same breath. The cemetery was awake now, and it wasn't hiding. I stayed in the tent for a while, trying to decide my next move, but around 11:15 p.m., things shifted again. The ground outside soft crunched, slow footsteps walking in a circle around my tent. One said it first, then 2, then more. I held my breath, listening as they moved closer, slower, heavier. Before I could gather the nerve to unzip the tent, the footsteps stopped suddenly. Silence swallowed the entire graveyard. That's when I made the worst decision of my night. I decided to challenge the legend of the Devil's Chair.
At 11:47 p.m., with 13 minutes to midnight, I told the camera I was going to sit in the chair. I don't know what I thought I'd prove. Maybe I wanted to show I wasn't scared. Maybe I wanted undeniable evidence. Or maybe something in the cemetery wanted me there. Whatever the reason, I left the relative safety of the tent and walked toward the chair. My flashlight beam flickered the moment I stepped away from camp. Not off, just unstable, like someone was breathing warm air over the bulb. The EMF detector kept shrieking non-stop now, pegged at its highest level. The thermal camera showed massive cold spots in the shape of vertical slabs, like figures standing between the headstones. I kept telling myself it was faulty equipment, but the way the air around those shapes felt colder, heavier, those weren't glitches. By the time I reached the Devil's Chair at 11:59 p.m., my breath was clouding in front of me in thick white puffs. The temperature had dropped at least 20 degrees. The entire cemetery sounded wrong, too quiet, too expectant. Even the insects had gone silent. I sat down on the cold stone. The moment I did, I felt something shift beneath me. Not physically, more like the air changed texture, like I had stepped through a membrane. At 11:59 p.m., I held my breath and waited. The world held its breath with me. Then, at midnight exactly, something impossible happened. Church bells rang. Clear, deep, resonant. There is no church here with working bells, not for decades. The sound vibrated in my bones, as if the bells weren't far away, but directly above me. Then came the pressure. The air folded inward, my ears popped, my vision blurred at the edges like a camera lens warping, and when the whispering began, I felt the blood drain from my face. It didn't come from behind me. It came from directly in front of my face. A cluster of voices layered over each other, speaking foreign words I couldn't understand. Then English words I could. You wanted to see me. That voice wasn't coming from the world I know. It wasn't human. It was deep, thick, and resonant, like something speaking from behind stone. I looked straight ahead, but the camera shows nothing, yet I know something stood there, tall, unmoving, watching me. My chest locked tight. I scrambled off the stone, stumbling backward. The laughter that followed, low, rumbling, delighted, ripped straight out of a nightmare. I ran back to camp, barely holding the camera steady. Inside the tent, I locked myself in and sat completely still, my breath shaking, and the night wasn't done with me. Around 3:33 a.m., the moment I saw the clock, the scratching started.
Slow, deliberate. Something dragging its nails across the outside of the tent. 3 long strokes, then silence, then 3 more. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. All I could do was listen as something circled the tent, scraping, testing the fabric like it was trying to decide the best place to cut through. And I knew, without any doubt, that whatever had followed me from the devil's chair was still here, still touching the tent, still waiting.
The scratching didn't stop. It kept moving from one side of the tent to the other, slow and methodical, like whatever was out there had all the time in the world. Every few minutes it would pause, long enough for me to believe it was gone, then drag its nails across the fabric again, just hard enough for me to feel the vibration through the ground. The first thing I realized was that the pattern wasn't random. It scratched in 3s, always in 3s, like it was marking something, or claiming something. I didn't dare unzip the tent. I didn't even dare shift my weight. I sat completely still, barely breathing, listening to the sounds of the graveyard tighten around me. The temperature dropped again, enough that I could see my own shaking breath in front of me, even inside the tent. Whatever had stood in front of me at the devil's chair, I could feel it again, close, too close, like it had followed me back and was only separated by a millimeter of fabric. At 3:41 a.m., everything stopped. No scratching, no footsteps, not even wind. There was this awful stillness, like the air outside was waiting for me to do something. I forced myself to stay silent, holding onto the camera like it was the only thing keeping me rooted to the world of the living. For maybe 10 minutes, nothing happened. And then my audio recorder turned on by itself. I heard it click, soft, mechanical, but unmistakable. The recorder had been off. I had turned it off myself, yet there it was, activated, recording in the pitch black graveyard outside my tent. I leaned closer, trying to hear if it was picking up anything, and that's when I realized I could hear something. Breathing. Not mine. Not human. Deep. Wet. Struggling. Like air forcing its way through a throat that had been dry for centuries. The breathing grew louder, more strained, more violent, until it sounded like something right outside the tent was fighting to stay alive, or fighting to come back to life. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Please stop." I don't know who I was talking to. I don't know if it heard me, but the breathing only got closer. Then the recorder picked up something else. Footsteps. But not walking. Dragging. Slow, heavy drags in the dirt. It circled my tent once, twice, then stopped directly in front of the entrance. I didn't move, not even an inch. That's when the whisper came, so low I thought it was inside my head at first. "Let me in." The words crawled across the tent walls like a cold hand. I felt a pressure on the zipper, not pulling this time, more like tapping. Gentle, patient, as if whatever was outside wasn't trying to break in anymore. It was waiting for me to open it. I don't know how long I sat frozen like that. It felt like hours. It might have been minutes. But at some point, exhaustion took over. Terror does strange things to the mind. I must have slipped in and out of consciousness because the next thing I remember was opening my eyes to faint sunlight bleeding through the tent fabric.
You guys look good.
It was morning. Birds were chirping like nothing had ever happened. The silence of the night was gone, replaced by the soft rustling of daytime wind. I reached for the zipper with shaking hands and opened the tent just enough to look outside. Nothing. No footprints, no drag marks, no signs of anything circling the tent.
But when I stepped outside, the first thing I noticed was the smell. Sulfur, sharp and sour, clinging to the grass. And then I saw something carved into the dirt, right in front of the tent flap. 3 long claw marks. Not scratches, carvings. Deep enough to scoop the soil aside in clean lines. I packed up my gear in 15 minutes, less maybe, and walked straight to the gate. I kept the camera running the whole time, but didn't speak a word. I didn't trust my voice not to crack. I didn't trust myself not to break down. Every headstone I passed felt like eyes following me. Every gust of wind felt intentional. Every shadow looked like it was waiting for me to stop moving. When I finally reached my car and slammed the door shut, I felt this overwhelming relief, like I'd stepped out of something's reach.
I didn't look back, not even once. I drove straight until I hit the main road, and even then, I kept checking my mirrors. Back home, when I reviewed the footage, everything looked normal until the moment I sat in the devil's chair. After that point, every camera had glitches, distortion, flicker, static. The audio was the worst. Layered whispers, breath sounds, and a deep rumble that no one should be able to produce without tearing their vocal cords. And the last clip, recorded from the audio device outside my tent, still makes my blood run cold. After the dragging footsteps stopped, and after the whisper, there's a moment of absolute silence. Then a voice, quiet, close, deliberate, says, "You stayed. Now I know you. Come back." I shut the file the moment I heard that. I still haven't listened to it again. But there's something else. Last night, at 3:33 a.m., the exact time the scratching started in Stoll Cemetery, my phone lit up on its own. No notifications, no calls. Just the screen turning on, glowing in the dark. For a split second, I thought I heard that same dragging sound outside my window. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe it wasn't. And look, I don't know how to end this cleanly. I don't know how to wrap up something that still feels like it's following me. But if you're still listening, if you're still here with me, then I need you to hear this part clearly. What happened in Stoll Cemetery wasn't a story. It wasn't a legend. It wasn't a joke. Something in that graveyard is alive, or trying to be, and it does not forget. So if you ever think about spending a night there, don't. Don't go near it. Don't stand by the gates. Don't set foot past those broken stones. I went in as a skeptic. I left knowing I had been seen. If you want the full footage, if you want me to return with a full investigative team, or if you want more true horror stories like this, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, tell me what you want me to face next. I read every single one of your messages, even if I can't always respond. And if you've ever experienced something like this, anything at all, share your story below. You're not alone. You're never as alone as you think you are. This is the IMR Scary Tales. Thanks for watching. And whatever you do tonight, don't wake up at 3:33 a.m.